Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today, Masechtas Bava Daf Kuf Yud Gimel. We're going to begin on Kuf Yud Beis, Amid Beis, 4 lines from the bottom. Ravina. Hai Shlucha the Rabbanon. When it comes to a shliach from the rabbis, the din is that mehim ninon le kebeitrei. They have such ne'emanis that one individual, it's ki'ilu like they are two people. V'hani mili l'shamta. That is specifically when it comes to saying that this person is to be put into cherem. Says Rashi, because the lo mishaker bebeidina, we know that they're not going to be lying. Avol, back in the Gemara, lepsicha, when it comes to an actual star shamta, an actual document, kivan de memoina kamachasile, since there's money at stake, the kaboil lemesa zuze with Safra, because you have to actually pay money to the scribe, low. In that case, no. When it comes to the din of money, you're going to need to have a second person. Ravina, Yavinin Zimna, Apuma de Isasavi, Apuma de Shivve, that we're going to give a Zimna, which is a subpoena. Says Rashi, Mizamninan Baldin employing within, when you have to go to court, that will be done even through the mouth of a woman or neighbor, says Rashi. Ha'ilechas etzlo, if a woman goes there, lefi darka o al pi shchena v'samchinan alai, you can rely on them, yavdin shulchasai, that they're going to do their shlichus. Imo asi machsakinan. And therefore, if the person doesn't come, we're not going to say, well, they just didn't hear about it. No, we're going to assume that these people actually did inform them, and therefore they're just straight out not coming to court, in which would require they would be actually put into cherem. However, that's only in the situation, says Rashi, the person who needs to be subpoenaed is not around right now. He's not in the city. The So why would we ask a neighbor to do it? Just go to them themselves and tell them. It's because they're not around. As we continue to Kuf Yud Gimel and Aleph, however, if this person is in the city, then no. Says Rashi, we're not going to put them in cherem. Maybe in that situation, maybe they didn't do their shlichus. So you can say, if he's not around in the city, so if you tell them, they'll probably inform them when they come back. But if he's already there, so they're going to maybe think, well, why do I need to inform him? He's already in the city. He probably heard about it without my doing. And therefore, because of that, the din will be that we're not going to put him in the cherem, because we're not going to be so clear. Because as the Gemara says, maybe they didn't say it to him. The Amri, what will they justify? Maybe it was a shliach beis din who told them. Therefore, I didn't go and tell them. And the only time we say this, we didn't pass by the door of the beis din, says Rashi. When he comes to his house, he doesn't have to go past the courts to get to his house from whatever city he was in. However, let's say the only way he can get to his house is he actually has to pass through the courts. In that situation, again, we're going to say the same thing. Because Amri Ashkachua Beidina, probably the beis din found him, and they told him. So again, it's a way that they would maybe justify not having done their shlichus if he had to pass by. Again, it's only if he came during the day. If he didn't come that day, low. Because maybe they forgot. So maybe the whole time we're going to believe them is if it all took place on one day. But if time had elapsed, then already we're going to be concerned that maybe they forgot to do what they were asked to do. Question 7. So when will we not believe them? So if, let's say, he's in the city, if he passes by the courts, and if he did not, it was not in that day. So because of those, there's justification that maybe they did their shlichus, and therefore we're not going to put them at the cherem based on that. Omer Rava, Haiman de Kosev le Psicha. So let's say you have this person that this is written on this individual, al doloi asiladina, because this individual was supposed to go to court and he didn't do so. Adi asiladina lo makarinin le. Until he actually comes to court, we are not going to rip it up. So even if he says, I'm going to come, it doesn't matter. We're going to hold this against him until this actually does take place, until he actually does come. Al Deloitte Sayas Ladina, let's say he just didn't listen. He went to the courts, but he didn't actually follow what he was told to do. Ad Sayas. So we're going to keep this document until he actually follows through. Until in that case, Loma Karina, we're not going to open the document. Lo, it's not true. Kivan Yemer Saisena Karinanly. Once he actually says, I'm going to do it, then I'll pay. So then at that point, we are going to actually rip it up. Says Rashi will alter. Immediately we're going to get rid of this document because the Dilma Lasely Zuze Hashna Tarach. Maybe he just didn't have the money now. He's not a bad guy. Of Abasaladina Kol Kamadol Asi Afkarusahu. The other guy, if he flat out doesn't even go to the court, he's basically saying, I'm not interested in listening to the court, I'm not even going to go to the court, so that's a bigger problem. But if the guy already went to the court, and he sat through and he was found that he owes money, so maybe he just doesn't have the money, but he's really not a bad person, so once he says he's going to pay, so we're going to assume that at some point he's going to. Amar Chisda, Kaivan Zman, Sheni v'chamishi v'sheni. So where Koiveh Zman says Rashi, what does that mean? Liyom Sheni b'Shabbos, on Monday, V'im lo yavo, if he doesn't come on Monday, Mizamninan oiso liyom chamishi. We say you better, okay, he didn't come on Monday, you better come on Thursday, next time we're at courts in session. V'im lo yavo, Mizamnin oiso liyom Sheni, and if not, then we have him come the next Monday. Okay, that's what it means. So Koiveh Zman, Sheni v'chamishi v'sheni, Zimna v'zimna basar zimna. Time after time, like one after the other. And then afterwards, if 3 times, like 3 strikes you're out, that's it. We're going to say, at this point already, we're going to write this against you, this document against you, because clearly you're just not listening. Ravasi or Ravashi ikla be Rav Kahana. So he went to the study hall or the house of Rav Kahana. So he saw a woman, Yasmin Ledina Bapanya, that there was this subpoena of sorts to go to court, but it was to come at night. It was Safra in the morning, Sibila Psicha, and then like the next morning, right out away, they wrote this against her. Understand? Why are you doing this so quickly? Don't we should give this woman a little more time? So Amalei Hanimili Gavra, the honest, that's only because there's excuses. Let's say it's a guy and he's busy doing something, so he couldn't come on Monday, but he has to, at least we'll give him a couple other opportunities to be able to organize his week, so he'll eventually come. This woman, why didn't she come right away? If we can see that she was just available and she just straight out didn't come, so therefore she's going to be considered like rebellious against the court immediately. So therefore we take action immediately. Amar Yehuda, lo yahavina zimna. We're not going to again do this as we said. Lo b'yomei Nisan, lo b'yomei Tishrei. There are certain times we don't want to do this. Why not during the days of Nisan? It says Rashi, Im zamnan adam ladin b'Nisan b'Tishrei. Why? Shein zman katsir ubatzir. These are times of harvesting, of planting. These are 2 crucial months for farmers. So we're not going to force people to have to come and subpoena them to court during those months, which is going to be very difficult for them to be able to navigate not going to work. And also, for that matter, not on Erev Shabbos or Erev Yom Tov. They're too busy doing other things. From Nisan, after the days of Nisan. Yomi Tishrei L'Basar Tishrei Kavinan. So you can do this on those months, but not that they should come, but they should come afterwards. For that matter, however, when it comes to Erev Shabbos, we're not even going to tell them on Erev Shabbos that you should come another time afterwards. My time, why are we so careful when it comes to Shabbos, the Erev Shabbos, but not, they can come and we can tell them in Nisan, by the way, I know it's Nisan, I know you're working, but in the month of Iyar, next month where you're not as busy, then we have to come to court. But not when it comes to Erev Shabbos. So loikvina, so my timer, but vinte de Shabbata tarid, because they're so engaged in Shabbos and preparing for Shabbos, they may not even have the frame of mind to even hear what you have to say about, and they may not even remember that they have to go to court afterwards. So Omer Rav Nachman, lo yavinan zimna, lo b'nei kalva b'kalva, lo b'nei rigla b'rigla. These are all the times that we're not going to enforce and tell people about coming to court. Not during the times of the kalva. Says Rashi, boin l'shmoy hadrasha b'chol Shabbos ein armum lo hayom sheni l'din demimna v'yasi l'kalva. So a person is going to learn, and you know that they're going to be there. But if you start telling them, oh, by the way, you have to come to court, guys are going to be like, you know what, I don't want to go to these drushas anymore because I know that they're going to end up bugging me about going to court, or who knows what they're going to talk to me about. So therefore, it's a very interesting idea that even though you see them, you should not bother them because there's a time to do this. And if you impose business in courts during the time when they really want to be able to learn, they're going to stop learning. The same matter also when it comes to a regel, that people would learn about the halachos of the regels found in the beginning, or the end rather, Masatas Megillah, 30 days before they would start learning. So again, if they're learning all about the dinim of Pesach, and all of a sudden you start bothering them during all these classes, they're going to stop coming to the classes. Is it with you that you gather these people? So what does that mean? Says Rashi, but in the ikaramoy chashinon. However, nowadays there could potentially be ramoyim, people who are engaged in trickery, which poship sha l'chayra means that people will just only come out during times of the shiurim and not the other time. So, and therefore, if you can grab them, maybe Taka should grab them. Okay. Then it says, Im haya davar sheish ba'achrayis chayv shalom. If this person has davar sheish ba'achrayis, which is generally translated as karka, then you have to pay. So masnila Rabbi Rav Shimon Berei. So when he learned this, he taught this to Rav Shimon, his son, he said, Lo davar sheish ba'achrayis mamish. This is not specifically referring to karka, as we understand it. Elafil par of a we had this before, a cow to plow with, v'chamor machamer achar. We actually have something which is here. It's a gazelle, it's kayemes, kayav l'hachser. You have to return them in kavod aviyim because of the honor of your father. So boy mine Rav Kahana Marav mita. How about a bed? Umeisiv to recline upon. Shulchan v'oichel of mahu. Is the same din also when it comes to these items. So what's the difference? Says Rashi. These are things which are not outside, like a cow, like a donkey, which everyone sees in a field. These are inside. It's not the same as a cow and a donkey, which is seen. So therefore, there's no embarrassment to the father because no one actually sees it anyway. It is possible that people will come into your house and see these things. So do you have to return them too? So he said, based on the pasuk, give wisdom and they'll become more wise. What does that mean? So Rashi, Kipar v'chamor, kain mit v'shulchan. In other words, there's no distinction. You have to return them. See the next mission. It says the Mastitzin. Ein portin lo metevas hamoichsin v'lo shel gaboyin. So important, Rashi says lahachlef. You cannot exchange coins and money not from a table of a muhsin, which is a tax collector, and also not from the pocket of a gabbai who collects monies. Says Rashi, Lefi shehin shel gezel, because when it comes to some of these individuals, when they collect, it appears as though it is a form of stealing. So therefore, you can't exchange monies. You cannot take from them tzedakah for that same reason. But you can take it from the house or from the marketplace, says Rashi. You can take from the house of the tax collector from his own money, or from the marketplace if there is money in the marketplace that is not from the Tevas HaMeches, then it's allowed. Okay, we'll have to understand this a little bit better, but it's interesting that, again, you have to be careful when it comes to dealing with business affairs with people who may not be 100%. It says the Gemara, Tana, you can give him a dinner and give the rest. What does that mean? Says Rashi, let's say a person's obligated in giving a certain amount of money to a tax collector, half a dinner. The einlo haprutos noisin dinner kesef. So you only had to really give half a dinner. So, but you don't have that. So all you have is like $100 bill. Let's say umekabel himenu prutos b'shava chetzu b'mneshehu kamatzal miyados. So you can take back half the money, so that you're not going to lose out. So that is allowed. You can't do an exchange of a $100 bill and he'll give you 520s back. But if you had to give him money for taxes, but you don't have, and he's only asked for half, so then the din is that you could get your change. So the Gemara continues and doesn't really understand this Mishnah. Umoichsin, what's the whole problem about tax collectors? What's the problem? You're supposed to pay taxes. So I understand. So this person who is collecting taxes from the king, which is a davar kotzav, Rashi says, that this is how much you have to pay each year, so you have an obligation to do so. So therefore, he's not doing anything wrong. So why would you say that this is like such a terrible person you can't exchange money with? So Rav Chanina bar Kahana Omer Shmuel b'moicha she'in lo kitzba. We're talking about a situation where there isn't a set amount. So he basically takes whatever he wants. So therefore, this is not really in accordance to a specific law. It's not like an accountant who has specific rules and regulations and codes and laws that must be followed. Okay, that din malchus dina, you pay those taxes. But if you're dealing with a situation where the tax collector just takes whatever he wants, so that's someone who's really engaged in stealing. He's talking about a situation, he's a tax collector who basically just does it himself. Says Rashi Shlomei Samelech, affiliational kitzvah. So he really doesn't have the authorization based on the king, but he just happens to be very powerful that he has the ability to take your money. So some people read this on a different piece. It says, a person cannot wear forbidden mixtures of wool and linen, even if it's on top of 10 garments. And you're doing it to basically run away from a tax collector. Says Rashi, you don't really want to wear it, and you're not supposed to wear kalayim, but the notion of wearing wool and linen together, the isser is really because you're wearing clothes you're getting hanaf from those clothes. But the only reason why he's doing it is he's doing it to basically run away from kilayim, right? To run away from this guy. So it's almost like Lamashal. Nowadays, you have to pay for, certain airlines, you have to pay money for just bringing in a tiny little bag. So instead of me bringing a suit bag, I'll put my suit on, and I'll wear my coat and my hat and another hat. I'll put all these extra garments on to save money from this tax known as these extra airline fees. So similar like that, but you can't do that when it comes to shatnez. So masnis lo could be key, but asanya also have riach hasamachas. You can't do things which are like running away from the tax collector. You could. You don't really have the kavana to enjoy the kilayim. So the question is it davar sheish matir? Is it davar which is a davar shein mischavin, whether it's mutar aser? How can you run away from a tax collector? So on this, it's talking about a tax collector who doesn't have a set amount, which is stealing. We're talking about he's just doing it on his own. Some learn it on a third thing. It says like this: Noidrin laharagin v'lachamarin v'lacharamin l'moichsin. Shehi shel truma, shehi shel beis melech. Okay, so what does this mean? Says Rashi, make a neder. It's a kainim kol parasalai. I'm going to aser all these fruits upon myself. Im ein tvu zu shel beis melech. If these grains do not belong to the king, or why would you say such a thing? Because you're doing it because there's a bunch of these people, they're murderers or people who are thieves, and you're doing it basically, or you're saying she shall truma, so therefore it's something which can't be eaten. She shall base melech, belongs to the king. Shall truma, shall melech. You're just doing to basically lie. Someone's trying to steal your money. You say, well, you know what? This is all the king's. This all belongs to taxes. This all belongs to the king, and it's probably not a smart thing for you to take this. So they'll walk away, and this way it's a trick so that you won't end up having to have lost all this money, but the truth is you don't really intend to make a neder like that. Well, moichzin, so the question again asks, what do you mean, tax collectors? So third time again, here we have a totally different answer. We're talking about a situation where the tax collector is from Canaan. The Sanya Yisrael Kanani Anos Shiboladin. Let's say you have a Yisrael and you have a Kanani that are by force come to court. And there's no way you are able to be zaycha to the base to a base din of Yisrael. Zakeu ve'emrlo kach dinenu. So they should say this is the din, but you only listen bedini kanain, but only listens bedini kanainim zakeu ve'emrlo kach dinchem ve'imla boinulav ba'kifin. Dear Rabbi Shmuel. Okay, we'll understand this in a second. Rabbi Kiva Oimer Ein Boin Allah Ba'Kifin Mimnei Kiddush Hashem. Okay, what's going on over here? So it says Rashi, B'moichen Shehu Kanani Anus. So we're talking about a situation. Ve'ein Lochash Im Goizlo. So you're talking about taxes, which belongs to a Kanani, and it was an Anus. Ein Lochash Im Goizlo. There's no chash about stealing. Hashem, Shein Mavin Shizet Mekazev. So if you can figure some way, you can cause that there's no way that a person could figure out that you did a Chil Hashem, so then maybe it's allowed. So it says Boinlo about Kifin B'chochma. So the question is, when you're under these certain stressors with a Kanaini, can you be Boinlo about Kifin, can use wisdom, like trickery, if you will, Israel, to be able to basically get yourself out of the court case. So that's basically the situation. If you have no other avenue, so we can say Zakehu ve'emrlo kach dinchem ve'imla boinlo ba'kifin. So you can say this is my din, but if not, you can trick your way out. Rabbi Kiva says, "Ein boinel about kivim kiddush Hashem," because of kiddush Hashem, there is that issue, and therefore we don't want you to be engaged in trickery because it could be cause. We want to always cause a kiddush Hashem. Rabbi Kiva taima deika kiddush Hashem, haleki kiddush Hashem boyin. However, it's mashma if there was no kiddush Hashem, Yitaka could cheat. The gezel kanani mishari, it's hard to understand. How is this allowed? How is gezel kanani allowed? It doesn't seem to be logical. We don't want to steal. So this was told in the names basically of the name of Rabbi Kiva. You can't steal. You can't steal from anyone. You can't steal from a kanaini. After he's sold, there will be a redemption. As we continue Kufyut Gimel Mebeis, what is that? What do we learn out from that pasuk? Shelo yimshchenu v'yetze. You can't just, you can't basically pay the non-Jew and go. Says Rashi Kolemer, Shelo yetzihu based in miyadakuti, that you cannot have him leave from the hands of the kusi. Rather, there has to be a form of geula. Yochel yiglom olav, says Rashi, Yochel yaniach hasakanani lichpoil, l'hoyse v'tavoa mashal nasan. Talmud l'omer v'chishav im konehu, yadaktek im konehu. So basically, we're learning out from here. This drasha is that you can't just simply steal, right? So it's hard to understand. And in fact, Taisa says that those that may hold that Gezel Kanani is mutter, obviously you need this pasuk to teach us something else. But it's pretty clear that this pasuk is saying that even with regard to a Kanani, you cannot steal. So Amar Rav Yosef lo kasha haba Kanani haba ger Taishav. It actually depends who we're talking about. If we're talking about a Kanani versus a ger Taishav, Rashi says ein oived avodah zarah v'oichan avelos. This whole din of not being of gezela, of not stealing, is dafka by a ger taishav. He's someone, at least he's not over the zara. He does eat nevelis, but he's a ger taishav. So since he is somewhat of an upstanding citizen, so therefore we have to be cautious not to do anything wrong with him. When it comes to a kanaini who basically breaks all the rules, doesn't follow any laws, almost for this law we have to keep. No. So if you can get away, obviously without causing a lack of a Kiddush Hashem, so then Gezel may be mutter. You understand? They're both written next to each other. Lulcha el ger, shener mel ger v'lul ger tzedek el ger toishev shener mel ger toishev mishpachas ger zel v'kachavim shu omer ol le'eker zeh tanim chalavas kachavim. When it talks about someone who's being sold, this is Gemara in Kedushin we had not too long ago. Says Rashi, it talks about how bad someone who's engaged in selling, engaged in business dealings of the Shemitah year, all the different crops. Adam shenais v'nois perish shvius doiv moichos atzmi. You'll end up selling yourself based on the smichas, all the juxtaposition of the psukim. So, and it says over there, it's referring to a kanaini, and someone says ulavoda zar atzm lachtav eitzel v'lasho mayim. So geula means that you need to pay him to get out. That's even referring to avikachavim. So l'chayra, we should never allow gezel. El omer rablo kasha kan b'gzelo v'kan b'havkas halvasoi. So there's a difference when it comes to gezelo, which Taki, you're right, that is not allowed. However, when it comes to loans, as Rashi shein gezel mamish. Shari ki leikachel Hashem v'avriach hameches havi kavkoyes halvasoi. So when we're dealing with these taxes, so if there's a way of getting around, this is almost like April 15th coming up. So maybe this is a shtickle heter, assuming that we're talking about an akum, but this is certainly not. These are people that just don't really adhere to any of the laws, which is not the case of America, of course. and we have to adhere and follow all the American laws of Dina Malchus Dina. But according to this, those people are of a Zara, they're idol worshippers, they commit all the horrendous crimes under the sun, so you still can't steal from them. However, if there's ways of not having to pay certain obligations of certain taxes, so then maybe there's more of a leniency for that. Amalei Abaye. Evid Ivri Hafkasal Vasahu. Understand what exactly is the whole din when we're talking about Evid Ivri paying back a loan. So what does that mean? So Rabbi Tamidi Amarabba Evid Ivri Gufa Kanli. An Evid Ivri by a non-Jew, he actually is kinda him. Rashi Kol Shanim V'Nimsa Shigazul Mamish. That it's actually considered gazela, right? So the fact that you have an Evid Ivri who was sold for 6 years to an Oiv Kachavim, he actually is kind of this person, and therefore if you take him away, it's stealing. Omar Abibi Bar Gidol Omar Shimon Chasida Gezel Kanani Aser. That, as we established, Gezel of a Kanani is Aser. However, of a Dasu Muteris, if you find an object which may belong to them, so you don't have to, you're not chayv l'hachras, as we'll see soon in Bava Metzia. Gezelu aser, you tell me the stealing is aser. Diyamar Rav Huna medayin legezel chanadishu aser shnemar. We could have brought what we just said before. V'yachaltes kol ha'amim asher Hashem lokecha noisin loch, and you shall consume from all the nations which Hashem has given to you this area. So bisman shein misurim biyadcha. It's only when they're given over to you, but not in the time when they're not given over to you. So therefore, we see that Gzela is still Takaser. You can't just take things from them if it was not, the land wasn't given over to you. If it's still their land, it's their land, period. How do we know that when it comes to lost objects, you keep them? Shehi Muteres, Shenember, the Pasuk Zuchol Avidas Achicha, which we've seen this drasha before. Achicha Atomachser, you have to return the lost objects of the people who are your brother, to those who do Masa Amcha. V'Atomachser Kanaini, but not to them. Maybe that's only if it's not in your hands. Hadure. Batra, they don't have to go look after it. Once you have it, maybe you should have to give it back to them. So Ravina Umatsasa. The pasuk of Hashavas Aveda is umatsasa, that you found it, which means it's already in your hands, and therefore it's already in your hands. So therefore, because of that, obviously, you can't make that distinction. Okay, Tanya Pinchas ben Yor Omer b'makam sheishlo Hashem afil v'daso aser. So even though it's true that maybe when it comes to an Aveda, you don't have an obligation to give it to the Kanaini, however, if everyone knows that it really belongs to this Kanaini, you'll cause a Chil Hashem, you have to give it back. Omer Shmuel, Ta'usai Muteris. This has to do with Ta'is Akum. If, let's say, there was an error on their part, right? It was some type of mistake in calculation, and it was in your favor, so you don't have to do anything about that. You can just keep the extra money, whatever it may be. Kihad Shmuel, as we find the following case of Shmuel Zavin Makuti, that he was engaged in a transaction purchasing from a kuti, Likneda Dahava, golden bowl, Bamar de Parzula Bedal Zuzi, and it was, as Rashi says, Mazreik Shel Zahab Becheska Shel Nechaishas. It was really made out of gold, but I guess he only thought it was copper. So he only ended up giving 3. So basically 1 zuz got absorbed. In other words, instead of it really costing more, because he thought he was selling something else, it was tois akum, so he only gave him 3, and therefore he ended up absorbing or saving a zuz. Rav Kahana Zavin Mekuti Meya Be'esrim Chavisa B'meya. So he was able to get 120 barrels, and he was able to get it B'meya. The Avalei Chadzuza, because he thought that it was really 100, but he ended up getting 120, and therefore he ended up saving a zuz that way. You should say, no, that I'm relying on you, right? This is what he basically said Rav Kahana said to the Kuti, he says, listen, I'm not going to do all these counting. I'm just going to assume that you know what you're doing, and that's it. So since I'm relying on you, so if you made the mistake, it's on you. Ravina Zavin Dikla, Hu V'Kuti L'Tzalcha. So Ravina, he was engaged in a business transaction with a date palm tree, and it was he and Akuti litzalcha lebakei, Rashi is to cut it. So he said to his servant, Kadam v'aisi mikaro, go and take from the thick part of the tree. The kuti minyana yada, because the kuti understands, says Rashi, minyan hapsokim mana, avlonas and einav kama dakim yesh v'kama gasim yesh. So basically, he's just counting numbers. So in other words, even if you would take the thicker part of the wood, not the thinner part of the wood, then again he's not gonna. It'll be fine. Ravashi Havi Ka'azah B'Orcha, he was on the road. Chaza Shibsha de Gufna B'Pardesa. He saw a branch in some type of vineyard or some type of orchard. The Taliba Ki Tufe de Inve. And he saw, says Rashi, there was Kitufe Eshkoles, there was clusters of grapes. Armaleu Shami, so he said to his servant, Zil Chazi, go and see Ik de Kuti Ninhu. If this field belongs to a Kuti, I see, then bring me these grapes. Yisrael Ninhu lo I see. If not, don't. Okay. Shama hu Kuti, this Kuti overheard this conversation. Tavi Yosef B'Pardesi, who was in his field, who was in his vineyard, orchard. So Armalei, so the Kuti asked, the Kuti Shari? I understand, you're saying, if it's a Kuti, take it? What do you mean? How can you take it? Armalei, Kuti Shakal Demei. All I meant was, when it comes to a Kuti, I want to pay for it. And only a Kuti would do this. Yisrael will Shakal Demei. But Yisrael wouldn't take money. In other words, any Yisrael that had this property and these grapes, they would allow me to do it because they know me and were probably good. We're going to be, he'll understand that, you're a Yid, so I'll give you some grapes. But you don't think that way. So I was basically saying, then I would have to pay for it. It says Taisus, Nir L'ri Shekain Hoyadaito Metchilo Kain. This is actually the truth. This is actually what he was thinking when he was telling his servant. Not the way he was thinking, that he was like just trying to steal it. Then because otherwise you would say that he holds that you can steal from him. When it comes to Geneva, where everyone sees it, there's a Chil Hashem. When it comes to Geneva, it's still a Chil Hashem. Hashem knows. At the end, people will figure it out. This is not bringing down any opinions that maybe Gezel Achim was mutter. It's Tosus is saying that this is actually what he was planning on doing. It wasn't basically saying he was caught in an act and never he made this up. Getting back, so the din again is when you're in a city or in a country, you have to follow the laws. And I'll prove to you that this is a Torah view. They chop down trees, they build bridges, and we travel on them. So what does that mean? So basically the idea is that there's taxes, but they're going for something. So we are getting benefit from certain things that they do. And therefore, because of that, it makes sense that we have to pay. So maybe the reason why they're able to build, because the question is like, and then how could you do that if, let's say, they're doing this on people's property? So the question is, maybe it's because the owners gave up hope. Hayish kadihav in kan shini rishus. Shirishus Shusarabim Hain, Bashini Maisa Nami Leka, Dash Dinami Goiva the Dikla Mikru. So the question is, how does that work? So Malay Ilo Dina Machusadina Heichimi Aishe, right? There would be no shinoi, there would be no kinyan. So that the whole idea is that clearly these people are allowed to do it. The dina machus dina, that they're allowed to do this, because otherwise there would be no shinoi, there would be no kinyan, because again, maybe someone would not be miyayish. But yeah, they're going to be miyayish, and they are allowed to do this. Avahulko abdi kidi amra malka. So what do you mean? They're not doing as the king said. Malka amra zilu v'katlu mikol bagi. So the king said, go and cut it from the whole valley. But all they did was remove it from one valley. So if they don't do exactly the instructions of the king, so then l'chara, how do we say that's dina machusadina? The shalucha de malka kamalka voitarach. The truth is, even if a king says, I want you to do it in a certain way, but he's giving the power of those individuals to be able to decide how to easily do it without much tircha. Ve'inhu asid nafshayhu. The iboiluhu the inkut mikuli bagi. They wanted to collect from all the valleys, umishkul demay, and collect money. So basically, the idea is that they were given some leeway to be able to do this. Omarava mandimishdakach bebeidari. Someone says Rashi, hayu arba shutvin begorin. Let's say you have 4 partners in a silo. V'yaviu shloisha chelkan bebeisan, and 3 of them brought their portions into their houses. Rashi, revia nimsa begorin, and you have the 4th guy that's still there. So if he's found in that location, para marasa demalka, he we say that he paid his taxes to the king. Says Rashi, bishvil kulam, for all of them. And when his friends come, no, they nabbed you, vo shalanu, and not us. So basically, the idea is that with partners, and you end up collecting from one person, he really paid taxes for all of them. V'hanimili shutva. That's only when it comes to partners. Of arisa, when it comes to a sharecropper that doesn't have actual connection to the land, in that situation, arusehu de kamapik. We say in that situation, they took from the sharecropper. So that is the din. Therefore, v'ein olav leproya chelik shel al habayis. You don't have to pay this guy back. V'yom Rabba bar masa. A bar masa me'abet. So he can't collect taxes from one person to another person who didn't pay taxes. He can't collect taxes from one person to another who didn't pay taxes. That is not allowed. Says Rashi, Rishus biad Yisrael gabe hamelach lamashkin ben ha'ir almas ben ir chavero dedina malchusadina. Okay, so a bar masa ma'abed. V'hanimili, the question is, can he? So, hanimili de barla ara v'karga. That's only when it comes to, let's say, for example, a head tax, the high shata for that year. Of a shata the cholif, but for last year's taxes, hoyel v'yafayis malka cholif. That once the king has passed the year, so then that's it. Says Rashi, "V'hu hagaboy kfar par hamelach kol kitzva." He already collected everything for that year. V'lo in koyach mashkin ezel chavero. So then he could not do so. So even though he may be able to collect from one to the other, because once he takes, let's say, a head tax, so then hopefully he'll be able to get reimbursed afterwards from the person who he paid taxes for. However, now when it comes to things from the year before, V'yomer Rava hani didari dari b'toichat chum asul ikach mehen. So he says these people, says Rashi, Akum, a non-Jew, Sheish Lahem Behemois, who has animals, Mazavan Mehen Sados Beschar, and they fertilize fields, and that's how they're compensated. So those people, they don't really own the land. They're just there to, again, do this task. So these people that are within the Tchum, you're not allowed to take from them. Says Rashi, Behema, you can't take their animals. Shema nischarbra im behemotehem shel Yisrael shel bnei Yisrael ninhu. So my time, mishum damaraba chevasa damasa b'hadayu, because they're joining and putting their animals together with the other animals. Chutz l'tchum, if it's outside the chum, mutal yikach mehem, you can. Or mavin im hoyu, because it certainly doesn't belong to the bnei Yisrael. Or mavina im hoyu balam meradfim acharehem, if chutz l'tchum aser. If the Balaam are pursuing after them, that even after chutz l'tchum is aser, because again, it's possible that, as Rashi says, they may be nischabra im b'mosehem shel Yisrael. Machas Rav v'yitem Rav Huna tetzalkin le'ela. So it was announced udenachtin latata, and those to come down. Hai bar Yisrael diyada sahadusa l'kuti. If there's a Yisrael that knows the testimony against to a kuti against a Jew, lo tabu minei va'azol and va'asid le bedini dekuti al Yisrael chavrei misham tin le. So in this situation, we will put this yid into cherem. My time b'deinhu mafkim amoina. Because what is the problem with just listening to their courts? Because apum dechad, they will take away money, shelo kedin. They would accept even one witness. So therefore, if you have knowledge against a Jew, and you're going to go and testify in one of these courts, so we're actually going to put you in cherem, because you are following laws from their court which are incorrect. Lo amar an el echad. We always say this if we're dealing with this one person. Avol betray, well, if there's two of you guys, then it's not a problem, because even in a regular Jewish court, that would be the same din. V'chad nami omron, that one is also not, the only time we put into cherem is el bedine dimegista, says Rashi, b'nei kfar. This is people in villages, shein yoidim ladun b'mishpat. They just don't know laws, if that's the court. Avol be davor, if we're dealing with a more sophisticated court system, also, when it comes to one, they would have the same din, as Rashi says. Al piyed echad ein moitziin mamoin. They don't take money based on the testimony of one. Al b'machayeven bal din shvua. L'hacha she'ed kedin Torah. They mamish follow similar to din Torah. So the only time it's an issue, basically, is if the laws are mamish different from Torah. Rav Ashi ki avin be Rav Huna, when Rav Huna was by us, he boiled on. The question was posed: Adam chashav the samchi alei kebei trei. If you have a Adam chashav who is as trusted as two people, mafki mamayna puma. So the din is: do we say that their monies can be taken out just by this one person? Loi boilei astuhude, and therefore you don't need to testify. Dilma, and therefore he doesn't need to testify. Dilma kivanda Adam chashavu. Lo matzi mishtamit lahu. So if, let's say, if he's an Adam Chashav, we cannot avoid them. Umatil asehude, and he can testify teku. So basically he's saying, again, what if we're dealing with an Adam Chashav, that he's normally one person is a problem and two people is not. But over here, an Adam Chashav who is trusted as two people, so therefore maybe he's allowed to testify. Especially, he can't avoid them. Therefore, we're going to allow him to testify. You're not going to put him to cherem. Or do we say no? When it comes to even this Adam Chashav, he shouldn't testify because they're going to take his money away. Okay. Amar Vashi, Hai bar Yisrael the zavin le ara. Let's say you have a Yisrael who sold land to an akum, a metzra de bar Yisrael chavre, on the border of a Jewish friend, Mishamtin and lay, we put him in cherem for having sold this property next to his friends. My timer. Misham dina de bar metzra. Maybe because it's a din de bar metzra. If you want to sell property, you're supposed to sell it to your neighbor first. Give them the first opportunity. There's no din de bar metzra when it comes to an akum. So why do we say mishamtin and lay? El diamrin and lay arbaisli aria amitzroi, lay down on my border. Mishamtin and lay adekabale kol unsa di ase machmasei, until all of the you accept upon myself any of the oinsim that will come because of it. Basically, he's saying that now that you sold this akum land, so now all of a sudden this Yisrael who's next to him there's going to be potential issues, and therefore you should be in cherem until you're makabel if there's any problems because of this new neighbor, this new owner of this field. So until then you'll remain in cherem. Okay, we're going to stop there. Let's maybe see a few questions. Question 8. Ha'imar shai gabay mas hamelach, a tax collector, lokachas mashkoin, can he take collateral miben ir, from someone in the city, al choiv mash shel ben ir chavero, can he take collateral, that's what we said over here, bar masa me'abit. So the answer is like this. Mas shel oisa shana rishai, he actually is allowed to take collateral if the tax is for right now. The shel shana sha'avra, or let's say any time a year that that passed. Dahainu shiparik kfar lamelch es mas hashana einu rishai. That's not allowed. So if it's a tax which is current, so then you can collect collateral from someone in the city for someone else to pay who owes taxes. Himotu liknos behema ma'akum didari dari. Can you acquire an animal from an akum, again, who they were fertilizing the field, etc. So b'teichat chum aser chutz l'tchum mutter. V'im hoyibal l'merad v'macharav afil chutz l'tchum aser. So as we said in the Gemara, so let's see this again. Haini didari dari b'teichat chum, which let's just make sure we understand this Rashi again. Akum sheish lehem behemos. He has animals and he fertilizes his fields. So you cannot take from them an animal, which we can understand because there's a chance that is maybe from a Yisrael. So within the tchum, it's aser because there's a chance that it belongs to a yid. Chutz l'tchum, it's mutter, unless the baal is merad ha'acharav, and therefore it's clear that it's still a problem. Okay. TA11. Alibin Rabbi Kiva the Gezel Akam Osman HaTayra Ma'adin B'Hafkos Halvasai. So what's the din when it comes to loans? If you have to pay back loans, and also similar to taxes. So this is question TA11. So b'makom chil Hashem aser, shein chil Hashem mutter. So it's all totally of whether or not there is chil Hashem. This is what Rashi says. B'Hafkos Halvasai shein gezel ma'amashari ki leika chil Hashem l'avriach hamechas habi kafkos halvasai. It's provided that again there's no chil Hashem, then it is acceptable. Question TB 11. Hai shlucha de rabbanan mehemnin lekebei trei. So we believe him like two. V'hanimil l'shamta when it comes to cherem. Avalo l'psicha. Ma psicha u'madua ein neman l'zeh. So this we had all the way back on Kuf Yud Beis Amud Beis, how we just started. So he said, "Mezeh yachol hayitzi mamon ve'ein eid echad yachol asos zeh rak l'chayva b'shvua." I don't know. So that's not the answer at all. But I try my best. So it says like this: Hay shlucha de rabbanon mehaminin lekebei trei v'hanimi l'shamta of l'psicha kivan de memoina kamach siloi. Okay, actually it's not totally wrong. A little bit. they call boil mesav le zuzi la safra. Okay, so and Rashi explains over there that when it said psicha is a shtar shamta, an actual writing of a document, that is not allowed. Then Rashi says v'chi sharle shamta lo sharle adioev zuza the psicha l'sifra. You actually have to give money. So that document, that much he's not going to be believed because we're dealing with money, and in that situation the din is different. Question TB12. Omarava Teda the dina machusadina the katli dikle v'gishrei vavrina nalayhu kasha dilma avrina nalayhu mishum yeyish bailim o mipnei dekanu beyeyish. Right, so maybe that's the reason why that they are stealing. So I wrote Haim Shalom Mamain Im Zafilu Bizman She'ain Yesh. Okay, it's basically what a nice try. This is what the Gemara says over here on. Let's find it on that Dina Malchusadina. Where is that? So Dina Malchusadina Teda, as we said, because they do all this, like how do they have a right to do it? Maybe it's because they stole and there's Yish Bailim. So he said, no, if it wasn't for Dina Malchusadina, Heich Miyayish. So then what do you mean? How could there even be Yish? All right? Fine. So that's TB12. Let's look at the Rashi as well. So we'll finish up cleanly. So Rashi over here says, let's find that Rashi. So Heichem Yayish. So this is Rashi again. Claimer, mi havi yesh. Like, why would it be yesh? Ha yesh kedi havi. It would just be yesh alone. If let's say it was stealing, all there would be was just yesh. The inkan shinu rishos. There's not considered to be a din of shinu rishos. Why? Because it's part of the Rishos Harabim. And Shini Maisa, it's also not, says Rashi, the Hashtanami Guva de Dikla Mikru. So, because the name, it didn't really change anything, so therefore, it's not shaykh to say, oh, maybe it's just because there's Yish, because Yish Kadi is not Kaina. So, it doesn't make any difference. Again, that question you got wrong. Adkan.